Your vehicle talks to you every day, not with words, but with sounds that can alert you to problems long before they leave you stranded on the roadside. The average repair bill jumps by 30% when warning sounds go unheeded for just a month. More importantly, some sounds signal safety issues that put you and your passengers at risk. Learning to identify these noises doesn't require mechanical expertise, just attention and the guidance I'll provide further. A high-pitched squeal or squeak, similar to fingernails on a chalkboard or a rusty playground swing, often indicates several possible issues in your vehicle. Common causes include worn brake pads, especially noticeable when braking, loose or worn serpentine belts, producing a constant squeal that changes with engine speed, dry wheel bearings, creating a squeaking that changes with vehicle speed, or power steering systems low on fluid, squealing primarily during turns. This type of sound represents a moderate to high severity level, meaning you should schedule service within 1 to 2 weeks, or immediately if the sound occurs during braking. Ignoring these squeals could lead to complete brake failure, engine overheating if belt-related, or wheel lockup in the case of bearing issues. When troubleshooting, pay attention to when the sound occurs. Squealing during braking almost always indicates worn brake pads, while squealing that changes with engine speed, not vehicle speed, typically points to belt issues. Take Sarah's experience as a cautionary tale. She noticed a faint squeal when stopping her Honda Civic, but continued driving for weeks until the sound turned to grinding. The final repair required not just new brake pads, $150, but also rotors, $350, that could have been saved with earlier attention. A rough, low-pitched grinding noise, similar to crushing gravel or coffee beans, should immediately raise concern. This sound typically comes from metal-on-metal contact in brakes, when pads have completely worn through, failing transmission components, especially noticeable when shifting gears, damaged wheel bearings, producing a grinding that changes with vehicle speed, or differential problems, grinding most noticeable during turns. This sound category represents a high severity level, meaning you should seek immediate professional attention whenever you hear grinding from your vehicle. If ignored, grinding can result in complete brake failure, transmission destruction, or in extreme cases, wheel separation. For troubleshooting purposes, if grinding occurs during braking, stop driving as soon as safely possible. Grinding only during gear changes indicates transmission issues, while grinding that increases with vehicle speed suggests wheel bearing problems. Consider Miguel's experience with his Toyota Tacoma, which developed a subtle grinding when turning corners. After driving 700 miles on a road trip despite the noise, he needed a complete differential rebuild, a $2,200 repair that might have been a simple $200 fluid change if addressed when first noticed. Rhythmic tapping or knocking, similar to tapping a pencil on a desk or knocking on a door, often originates from the engine compartment. This sound can be caused by low oil level or pressure, rod knock, indicating serious internal engine damage, piston slap, especially noticeable in cold engines, valve train issues, or something as simple as a loose exhaust heat shield. The severity level varies dramatically, from minor in the case of a heat shield to severe engine damage with rod knock. Ignoring engine knocking sounds can lead to complete engine failure requiring replacement, which typically costs between $3,000 and $10,000, depending on the vehicle. For immediate troubleshooting, check the oil level right away. If the oil is full and the sound persists, particularly a heavy knock, shut off the engine and have the vehicle towed to avoid catastrophic damage. Light ticking that disappears when the engine warms up may be normal in some engines, particularly in certain Hyundai and Kia models. Robert learned this lesson the hard way with his Ford F-150 when he heard a light tapping in the engine that increased with RPM. He drove 50 more miles before the engine seized completely, turning what could have been a $400 oil pump replacement into a $4,800 engine rebuild. Sharp clicking or popping noises, reminiscent of walking on bubble wrap or clicking a ballpoint pen, often signal specific component failures. CV joints failing will produce clicking sounds during turns. Exhaust leaks create rhythmic ticking, especially when the engine is cold. Worn steering components cause popping when turning the wheel, and spark plug or ignition issues make clicking sounds under acceleration. These sounds represent a moderate severity level, meaning you should schedule service within 2 to 3 weeks of first noticing them. If ignored, clicking or popping could lead to loss of power to wheels with CV joint failure or decreased fuel efficiency, and reduced power in the case of exhaust or ignition issues. To narrow down the source, remember that CV joint clicks primarily occur during turns. Exhaust clicks remain relatively constant but may be louder at cold start, and steering component clicks happen only when the steering wheel is moved. Lisa experienced this with her Subaru Outback, noticing clicking when turning but waiting 2 months to address it. When the CV joint failed completely, the repair required a tow and complete axle replacement costing $750, instead of just a CV boot replacement that would have cost $250 if addressed promptly. A snake-like hiss or the sizzle of food on a hot pan usually indicates pressure or fluid escaping somewhere in your vehicle. Common causes include vacuum line leaks, coolant leaking onto hot engine components, exhaust leaks, or failing gaskets allowing pressure to escape. This represents a moderate to high severity level, meaning you should check fluid levels and inspect for visible leaks within days of noticing the sound. Left unaddressed, these issues can cause engine overheating, reduced power, decreased fuel economy, or catalytic converter damage, all of which can be costly to repair. When troubleshooting, note that hissing that occurs after shutting off the engine typically indicates coolant leaking onto hot engine parts, while hissing during operation often points to vacuum or exhaust leaks. Carlos experienced this firsthand when he noticed hissing from his Chevrolet Malibu, but continued driving for a week before investigating. The small radiator hose leak eventually burst completely, causing engine overheating that warped the cylinder head. What could have been a simple $50 hose replacement became a $200 cylinder head repair due to delay. A high-pitched whine or howl, similar to a distant siren or wind through a narrow opening, can originate from several vehicle systems. Low-power steering fluid often causes whining during steering. Failing transmissions, especially automatics, produce a distinctive whine. Differential problems create howling noises. Bad wheel bearings or worn tires generate speed-dependent whines, and failing water pumps or alternators produce mechanical whines from the engine bay. These sounds indicate a moderate severity level, meaning you should schedule service within 1 to 2 weeks to avoid more serious complications. If these sounds are ignored, they may lead to steering difficulty, complete transmission failure, or electrical system problems that could leave you stranded. When troubleshooting, note that power steering whine occurs mainly during turning, transmission whine changes with gear selection, and differential whine typically changes with speed but not with engine RPM when the vehicle is in neutral. David learned about this the hard way when his Nissan Altima developed a whine that increased with speed. Thinking it was just road noise, he ignored it for months until his alternator failed completely, leaving him stranded with a dead battery 50 miles from home and facing both a costly tow and emergency repair. Sounds similar to loose change in a dryer or a vibrating phone on a hard surface indicate components that have come loose or are making inappropriate contact. The most common causes include loose heat shields on the exhaust system, damaged catalytic converter internals, worn engine or transmission mounts, foreign objects caught in the fan or belt area, or loose interior components. This category typically represents minor to moderate severity, meaning you should schedule service within a month unless the sound is particularly loud or violent. If ignored, rattling mainly causes continued annoyance, possible exhaust system issues, or minor mechanical wear over time. When troubleshooting, note that exhaust rattles are typically louder underneath the vehicle and often appear at specific RPMs, while interior rattles change when you press on different dashboard or door components. Emma experienced this with her Mazda CX-5, which developed a rattle underneath that grew progressively louder over time. The eventual $120 repair to secure a loose heat shield would have been just $20 if addressed before the shield became bent from excessive vibration. Today's vehicles have better sound insulation and sometimes use different materials, but the warning sounds remain similar with some important differences. Electric and hybrid vehicles may emit high-pitched electronic whines that are completely normal but can sometimes mask other problematic sounds you should be aware of. Direct injection engines in newer vehicles normally produce more ticking noise at idle than older engines, which shouldn't necessarily cause concern. Dual-clutch transmissions found in many newer performance-oriented vehicles might make clicking sounds during low-speed operation that are part of normal function. Auto start-stop systems cause normal shuddering during restart that shouldn't be confused with engine problems or failing mounts. Not all unusual sounds indicate problems requiring attention or repair. Brake squeaking in the morning, especially in humid climates, often disappears after a few stops and is typically nothing to worry about. Brief chirping when starting the air conditioning is usually just the compressor clutch engaging normally. Ticking sounds after shutting down the engine are usually just normal metal contraction, as hot components cool. A humming sound from the fuel pump for a few seconds when first turning the key represents normal operation as the system pressurizes. Clicking sounds from the engine bay after parking are typically normal fuel system pressure, equalization, and not cause for concern. Before heading to the repair shop, taking a few simple steps can save diagnostic time and money. Record the sound using your smartphone's voice memo function if possible, as this can be incredibly helpful for intermittent noises that might not occur when you're at the shop. Make note of exactly when the sound occurs. During cold start, after driving for a while, during braking, or in other specific circumstances. Track whether the sound changes with speed, engine RPM, or specific actions like turning or braking. Document approximately how long you've been hearing the noise, as this helps technicians understand how the problem might have progressed. This detailed information can significantly reduce diagnostic time and help ensure an accurate repair the first time. Becoming familiar with your vehicle's normal sounds creates a baseline that makes abnormal noises easier to identify when they appear. The few minutes you spend paying attention to new sounds can save thousands in repair costs and prevent dangerous breakdowns at inconvenient times. Remember that no sound your car makes will improve or fix itself by being ignored. Mechanical problems almost invariably worsen over time. When in doubt about any unusual noise your vehicle produces, have it evaluated by a professional technician who can properly diagnose the issue.